Wednesday. I'm super, and as I sit back and I kind of rethink about where direction I want to take this channel and what kinds of amazing things I want to bring to you, uh, it may be, just a heads up, it may be a little bit in between some of these live and unscripteds, but they're coming. They're coming. I have some fun people on the books and looking forward to finding a few other really great ones. So thank you for your patience as we do a little bit of shifting and reshaping, and looking forward to bringing you lots and lots of good stuff. Um, so let's start how we usually do, and that's with a moment of getting ourselves present, just a moment of breathing, a moment of just ah, letting go of what's already happened in the day and letting go of what we think is going to happen in the rest of the day, and just learning how to be right here, right now, where magic actually can happen because we're conscious, where we can be intentional and we are with ourselves. So here's what it's going to look like today. Simple breathing exercise, box breathing. And as you breathe it in today, I'm going to invite you to breathe in the energy and the feeling of something that you're grateful for. And you can think about the thing you're grateful for, but what's important here in this particular exercise is the feeling. Grab a hold of the feeling. And if it's not something that you're grateful for, then how about a place that really brings you joy or excitement, and bring in the energy and the feeling of that. Because when we can have that energy and feeling surging through us as we're doing this, that is what will actually regulate and turn on the parts and pieces in our body, the genes that then bring more of that to us, because we know the difference, and our body will think that we're re-experiencing that thing. So breathing in for a 4 count through your nose, holding that inhale for a 4 or 5 count, exhaling through your mouth for a 4 or 5 count, then holding the exhale. On the exhale, just breathe out any like uncomfortable or deregulating energy or energy that brings you down. Let that stuff go. And then again, on the inhale, bring in that feeling and the excitement and the energy of something that you're grateful for, or being in a place that really energizes you. I'm going to go ahead and do this with you. Let's do 3 cycles of this today. And as you do it, I'm going to invite you to do it with either a downward gaze or closed eyes, whichever feels most comfortable for you. I'm going to go ahead and close my eyes. You're welcome to, again, close eyes or do downward gaze. Starting that first breath in through your nose. Holding that inhale, bringing in all that yummy energy. Releasing through the mouth, letting go of any deregulating or downgrading energy. Holding that exhale and repeating now on your own. And one more cycle. And when you're ready, feel free to open those eyes and join us right here, right now, where magic happens. I love that little simple exercise that really only takes 30 to 60 seconds, and you're welcome to do it longer. And I would encourage you to take that from here today and start applying that in every day, in situations where you feel yourself starting to get a little bit wound up or a whole lot wound up. When you're driving, it's a really great way to just bring yourself back into present moment and not get into road rage. And to bring yourself back to, again, that space where you can make decisions out of consciousness, out of love, out of the wisdom of your mind and your body working together. And again, where real magic happens. I love the calming that it brings in just a really short amount of time. So thank you for joining me in that. Again, as we start another live and unscripted. Today, I'm really excited to bring to you my dear friend and soul sister, Tiffany DeLuisi. And we're having a few technical difficulties. And so I'm hoping those things will work themselves out. As of right now, in this moment, I can hear Tiffany, but I can't see her. So I'm hoping maybe as we bring her on the screen that will change. And if not, then I'm going to encourage you I'll put a picture on, or we'll find a way that you can see her cute face, because it's a cute face and you want to see it. But if you're not able to see her, that at least we'll be able to have a conversation, and that the nuggets that are supposed to come from today will actually be here for you. And we're going to go ahead and just trust that inspiration in this particular conversation. So again, these conversations are typically with people that I don't really know. Tiffany, I know a little more than some of my other guests. I've had the opportunity to spend a fair amount of time with her. I lived in a house with her for a week with 10 other women and got to know her a little bit. I got to see her a couple of weeks ago here in my own hometown of Idaho Falls, and she has great information. Every Wednesday, I have the opportunity to learn from her when I can get on that call. And what I can tell you about her is she has this passion for health and for life that is really engaging. And she loves to engage you in that. And we're going to talk about maybe where that passion comes from and all that as we get into this. But I do know this too. She has two of the cutest little boys ever. I saw them in their swim goggles the other day. Melted my heart. So with that, I'm going to bring you on my friend, Tiffany DeLuisi, functional wellness practitioner, master herbalist, and amongst other things. I'm going to let her tell you more. So let's bring her on. Tiffany, you're going to get your own countdown. I can see you.
It worked.
Yay. Oh my gosh. Seriously, that has not happened before. I'm thinking, where is she? Oh my gosh. You guys, meet my friend and my sister, Tiffany DeLuisi. Okay, so before I gave him like the really quick rundown of what your background is. Will you give him the rest of it, just the little nutshell version, and then we'll go on.
Sure. So I have been
gut health specialist. That's what
gut health. I have a lot of stuff going on. I have more certifications and licenses than anybody really needs, but my passion for health and wellness really started. I mean, I was kind of getting into it maybe about 7 years ago, but it really started when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia 5 years ago. I just wasn't getting the kind of answers I wanted from doctors or the help that I needed, and was super determined to just figure it out on my own. So that's what I did. So I went back to school. I learned all the things to try to figure it out on my own. And then I found that there's a lot of other people out there that really struggle with some of the same things, that really wanted help with that. So that's kind of the short version of how I got involved in doing what I do.
That is awesome. I'm going to tell you, we got the really short version because it froze a little bit, or a lot bit. So will you just like really quickly where you got your certifications, what they're in again, and we got the fibromyalgia part, but will you give us just that little bit of what your certifications are in?
Yeah, so my initial certification is in eating psychology, so an eating psychology coach. And then I have from the Institute of Transformational Nutrition, Gut Health. And then the American Association of Drugless Practitioners, it's not just herbs, it's natural remedies. So it's essential oils, herbs, other things as well. Technically a functional medicine practitioner, but I say wellness because people say, are you a doctor? And I'm like, I'm actually not a doctor. So I would have to go to get one more to be a naturopath. And my husband gave me you're cut off for a while on spending more money on school. So someday, maybe soon, that's going to be part of the package too.
Awesome. Okay. We got most of that. We're still experiencing a little bit of I don't know if someone's paying attention to this call or we have crazy stuff going on. There's a little bit of freezing, so we're just going to go with it.
Okay.
I learned, I didn't know you had some of those certifications from those particular bodies of knowledge and wisdom. That's really cool. I've already learned something today. So one of the things that I love to ask my guests before we get, like, just kind of as a lead into where this conversation may go, is I always love to hear about what you were like as a kid. What was Tiffany like as a kid? What did you like to do? What did you dream about? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I'm the oldest of three. And I think I kind of took on a mothering role really young. So I loved playing with dolls. I loved pretending to be a mom. My siblings will still make fun of me for this, but I'd make them sit down and I would play teacher with them. And I was an educator for 8 years before having kids. So I guess that paid off. But they're like, yeah, you'd make us sit down there and you ask for a chalkboard for your birthday or Christmas one year and you'd have your chalkboard, you'd be doing math lessons. And we're like, can we leave yet? So I would do a lot of that kind of thing. So I was very shy, very, very, very shy. Even into early adulthood, like people that will run into me now from high school will be like, who are you? And I was like, I'm the same person. They're like, no, you were so shy. So I've come out of my shell quite a bit.
Okay. So I have a question about that because I very much was quiet, shy when I was young. At the same time, I wasn't. But when I tell people that, they have a really hard time believing that. But what do you think that was for you? The shyness? What was the cover? What? Give us the what.
I just think a lack of confidence. Just not really trusting or being sure of myself and who I was. I heard a really interesting podcast one time where somebody was like, one of the worst things you can do is refer to your children as being shy. So I have one of those. And so I try to catch myself with saying that because it puts that label on them. And so that might be cute when they're little, but when you're an adult, that's no longer cute. It can come off as being rude. And you don't realize that. It's just that you're just so like, and it's not even really introverted because I'm more of an extrovert. It was just not feeling comfortable or confident. But I was told all the time, Tiffany's just shy. She's just really shy. She'll come out of her cage, she'll break out of her shell eventually, but she's so shy. And so I think that label was also put on me as well, because as soon as I had heard that, I was like, oh yeah, I was referred to as being shy all the time, which I think kind of made me feel a little bit more not very confident about doing things.
Right. Okay. I get that. And what you said, it lasted even into like young adulthood or adulthood. What was that shift for you? Do you think? Why? I'm going to guess it wasn't an all of a sudden thing, but sometimes it can feel like it's all of a sudden. What caused that change or stepping into more confidence for you? Being a teacher, maybe?
Yeah, I think maybe being a teacher, but ironically, I'd be fine in front of the kids. But if like you would have asked me to speak in front of my staff, I would have been like, my gosh, right? Or introduce me to somebody new that I just, from, I don't know. It would have been really hard for me. But I think a lot of self-development, like personal development, lots of therapy, lots of, just working on myself and realize that I had a really low confidence. I had a really low self-esteem. And so in order to, when I started building that up, I became more confident. And then I wasn't so shy or didn't worry about, well, what are they going to think of me? Like, I don't really, because kids aren't really like that. You know what I mean? Like they're honest, but they're not like, I think she might be stupid, or, she doesn't wear her hair. They're usually pretty forgiving and loving, especially since I had like mostly third graders. So they like, I didn't really get that. Right. But I would have been terrified to walk into a high school classroom and teach high school students who were more like judge you on everything. I probably couldn't have done it. But yeah, I think a lot of it came with building my self-esteem and building my self-confidence. And then that kind of started to go away.
I love it. You talk about high school. I used to substitute teach, and I loved. I really enjoyed the junior high. The elementary school was fun, like the upper grades of elementary school. High school, woo! I mean, I did fine there, but that's a whole different ball of wax. Like, yeah, high school. Woo!
Yep.
Wouldn't want to go back and sub that. Ingredients. Now she's completely off the screen. Tiffany, can you hear me? I'm going to put you back in the stream here.
I don't know what happened. Can you hear me now and see me?
Yeah, now I can. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We're just going to continue the flow. I'm not sure what's going on today, but we are. And that's for those who are listening who may be feeling a sense of frustration. Just I want you to know that in times past, I probably would have been super, super frustrated. And I want you to know that's welling up in me a little bit because I want, like, the perfectionist side of me wants to present to you the absolute best of everything that we can put out. And here's what I want you to know, that at Righteous Rebel, part of what we teach and coach is that moving forward isn't about moving forward in perfection. It's about taking all the little steps. And sometimes glitches happen. And sometimes we're not sure what to do with those glitches. And so today, Tiffany and I have agreed that we're just going to go with the flow within perfect imperfection. And so we appreciate you hanging in there with us. We appreciate you being on the ride of your own ride of being like, oh, okay, well, if they can do this and it's not perfect to what our standards would be, or maybe I can do the same thing. So there's a lot of great lessons. This is what I love about Live and Unscripted, is that we go with the flow and we follow inspiration as it comes. So that aside, Tiffany, the next question would be this, is it sounds like you got to do what you dreamt or wanted to do as a young kid by way of being a teacher.
Yeah.
Were there other things that you aspired to?
Well, I wanted to be a princess, but that didn't work out for me. Oh, okay, I cut out. I said it slowed. Well, I wanted to be a princess, but that didn't really work out for me. So.
How perfect was that? That music came on and you said you wanted to be a
timer. Yeah, that's funny.
Okay, so tell me how come that didn't work out, because I might disagree.
Okay, maybe it did work out.
See, Frozen princess right there.
Frozen princess. So, ironically, when I met my husband, my father always called him Prince. And so then he was like, oh, and now we've got our princess. So that is kind of funny. But yeah, I remember watching Princess Diana's wedding as a kid, and I was really little, and just being like, oh, wow,
Right.
I mean, like, as a kid, for me, like, yeah, we had Snow White and Cinderella, but not as many of these Disney things as we do now. But I was just so enamored with that. Like, I want to wear a ball gown and be a princess. And so I do think it's kind of funny that, yeah, my father-in-law always called Mike the prince, and then I was the princess. So I guess I am a princess. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. You are a princess. Absolutely. And you have the music and the freeze frames to prove it. Okay, So I know that one of the things that you focus on is natural health, uh, a lot of herbal and natural remedies, and that your focus is a lot on
Mhm.
people with fibromyalgia, or who have that in their bodies. But what kind of what brought you to that? Like how? Well, no, even before that. Well, maybe that is the question. Like, I know there's a bigger picture beyond the natural remedies and all of that. Like, what is it that through this body of work that you do that you're wanting to bring to people? Like, what's the big why more than just helping them have a healthy body?
Well, I think a lot of it for me too was going through this process, and people are like, that's a made up disease. I've even had family members tell me that. And I was like, you think I'm making up like being in this kind of pain or feeling so miserable? Um, that was really hard. And as I started talking to more and more women, I was not alone in this, right? Like their spouses have a hard time understanding what's going on. Their family has a hard time understanding what's going on. And they had a hard time explaining it to them. And sometimes it's like when they hear it from somebody else, they're like, oh, this is really happening, right? Um, so I think there was a part of that too. When I started to kind of hear statistics, very big numbers of women with fibromyalgia also have some kind of trauma, past trauma in their life. Um, that was big for
Okay.
me too.
I mean, that is something that I didn't know. So I appreciate you bringing that
Hmm.
up. It
Yeah.
makes sense to me. It makes
Um,
sense.
so that was big because I felt that my trauma was silenced, like nobody's going to believe me. You don't talk about things like this. And holding on to things for a long time. And I wanted there to be an outlet to finally talk about it, whatever it is.
Okay, so before you go on, let's just I know that we've talked, not you and I necessarily, but on this live and unscripted, I've talked with other people, and I'm just going to reiterate it here is that every physical ailment has a metaphysical
Mm-hmm.
cause or reason or source, which means that there are books by Louise Hay, Heal Your Body, Heal Your Life. We have um, uh, Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. I can't think of her name. The last name starts with a K. We've got books like The Body Keeps the Score, and all of these things talk about what Tiffany just mentioned is that we experience things in our youth or in our life, really, but a lot of times it happens in our younger years where we collect a belief or we don't know how to deal with the trauma, and so we never really heal it, and our body takes on the energy of this thing and creates a dis-ease. We call it disease, we call it a dis-ease, or some kind of ailment that then our minds then go and focus on, and it gives our mind something to do, because it's like, oh, I have something wrong with me, and I can focus on that I've got this thing wrong with me, versus going out here in a mental emotional space and actually figuring out, sometimes spiritual space, what is actually the source of what's going on. So that's kind of what Tiffany is referring to when she's talking about the traumas that happen to us, and instead of taking care of it or knowing how to, sometimes we don't even have the tools or
Yeah.
resources
No.
to know how, or like you said, that people would believe you. It stores somewhere in our body. That's why I say, for me, it makes a lot of sense. It's something that I have studied. I can totally geek out on that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So from there, go ahead and keep
Yeah.
talking.
And I
Thank you for
mean,
letting
there's
me
so many
interrupt.
times people will think, well, this is normal, right? This was a normal part of life. And they don't know that it
Absolutely.
was not normal. It was not okay. Um, and to suppress it, not talk about it, things like that. And to be able to finally talk about it, to understand that you're not alone in things is very, very, very healing. Is very healing.
Healing in huge ways. And we're just, can we stick in this caveat right here? If you are someone who's listening to this right now and you have something that you think is normal that you've never talked about, or that you're not sure to talk about, please reach out.
Mhm.
Have answers for you. We can help find you resources so that you get the help and assistance that you need to live healthy and start healing from the inside out.
Yeah. one of the things I do with my clients is I have them write their fibromyalgia story, right? And so it might start off kind of superficial, like I was diagnosed at this time, this is what was going on, this is what happens. But as we start to kind of go back and talk about what sort of things happen in childhood or what sort of things happen here, and start to see this connection. It's not easy work by any means. I mean, I've done it. It's not easy.
No.
But you start to see that, you've kind of held on to this for so long. And it could be a very healing part of the process of being able to let go, because we know that, well, maybe not we, but I know, right, that fibromyalgia is caused by a hyperactive stress response in the body that then affects our nerves, which then affects nerve pain and other issues. So a lot of times that stress response has been kicked off by a past trauma. So every time you're having some kind of stress response, whether it's an argument with a spouse or a speeding ticket, or you just got fired, that reactivates all of that trauma, and that cortisol shoots up, and your body just, you feel the pain of the stress that you're in. So
I love it. So part of what I'm hearing you say there is that the pain that the physical pain that you're feeling in the moment isn't necessarily, I mean, it is the physical pain in the moment, but it's not coming
always.
from
Yeah.
the moment. It's probably more than likely something back a ways.
Yeah.
Did I
It'll
translate
re-trigger,
that
and sometimes
correctly?
we don't remember, right? Like, think about it being a child, right? Let's say you're in a car accident as a young child. You're going to perceive that very differently than being an adult. So maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe nobody was hurt, but that was very scary for you. You're going to perceive that differently as a child than as an adult. And that may carry along with you. You don't realize that got carried, that there's this fear. Maybe you don't even realize that there's somewhat of fear every time you get in the car, every time you do, or or your teenager starts driving. There's this fear, and you don't really put your finger on it. But sometimes those things happen at a really young age, and because the way we perceive them in our young age is very different, then it can, it has this effect. So that's when when you can start to work that out and acknowledge, like, oh, I guess that did happen. And for me as a child, it was a bigger deal than it was for my parents or whatever. And so that's just one example. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, Tiffany, you said you've worked with Be Live before.
I have.
Is this
I
true?
have, but it's been a long time.
Okay, I keep seeing things on my picture. I don't know if anyone else can see it. There's a little teeny triangle, like a caution triangle, that comes on the
I've
top.
seen that flash.
I have no
off and
idea
on
what
too,
it
but I
means.
didn't know what that was.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know if that's like a internet issue, or there's obviously some internet issues going on. But okay, so this, again, to sum up what you were just saying, is that as we start to mature in age and in tools and understanding, we're more often able to process things that happen to us. You were using the example of a car accident. It could be an argument with a spouse. It could be getting a bad grade in school. It could be your neighbor yelling at you because you didn't place the guard. I mean, it could be a million things. But as an adult, we're going to process it more than likely, not in every situation. More than likely, we're going to process those incidences differently than we would as a child, simply because we have maturity of tools and life understanding under our belts.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
And so sometimes that past trauma has to be dealt with. So one of the things I did several years ago was a kind of therapy called EMDR, and I can't remember what it stands for. It has something to do with eye movement. So I had first heard of this, and I'm like,
yes,
EMDR is fascinating. I want to try it. And it is super fascinating.
Right?
And
it is fascinating.
I had no idea how hard it was going to be. I just thought it was going to be really cool to figure things out. But it really helped me get to the root of a lot of trauma
Right.
in my life and to really kind of work it out. And so super healing, right? But there were things that came up where I was like, why in the world am I having this memory? Like, why is this coming up now? It's because to little Tiffany, that was traumatic and I needed to work it out. And as an adult, I'm like, that seems weird. Like, why? But to that little girl, that was traumatic.
Something that comes to my mind is that I'm a believer that things happen in right timing. Now, I know that my soul knows that.
Mm-hmm.
My mind doesn't always want to believe that, and I want to be frustrated at things. But um, if I believe that, or someone were to believe that all things happen in right timing, then these healing opportunities come to us at the right time. They seem like they come at very inopportune times often, but it's my belief, and this is what I'm asking you: is do you believe that they come in these moments when we are actually, our minds, our bodies, our spirits are actually ready to clear them from our system so that we can move on to the next thing, or we're finally emotionally mature enough or strong enough to then
Yeah.
release these things, and that it's not just, things are not just going to come at us if it's something that we can't handle?
So
How does
yeah,
that
I think that
what's
it
your
does
belief and
happen
thought on
in the time where it's supposed to. So when this whole thing happened, I was seeing a therapist, and one of the other therapists in her practice had just finished getting her certification in EMDR and needed basically some guinea pigs. And I thought it was cool. So I'm like, I'll be a guinea pig. So ironically, this was about 6 months before my grandfather had passed away. And my grandfather was, when my parents got divorced, my mom went back to work. He was basically childcare for us. And nothing like really bad happened, but it was just a very different perspective of how he was raised, you know, in the depression and things like that. But I had a lot of built up resentment towards him that I didn't think I had. And so being able to work that out before he passed away and feeling like I could totally be at peace with my relationship with him was very beneficial. So I don't think that there's any coincidence that some of that came along right then. Whereas my brother had to do a lot more therapy and work after he had passed away, because he said, I really, all these harsh feelings started coming up, a lot of anger, a lot of hurt when he had passed away because he had not dealt with it before. And like, you know, all things happen when they're supposed to happen. But that was just one example of some things that, you know, I believe in a higher power and a God, that it was like, you're going to need to have that healing in order before he passes away, because he was one of the most important people in my life. He was more of a father to me than my own father. So imagine like if he passed away and I didn't deal with my crap, right? Like how would I have, things could have been very different.
right?
So yeah, I do think it
Right.
all happens when it's supposed to happen.
In my humanness, sometimes I don't want to believe that and think, why in the world are this happening now, when in reality, when I can breathe and be in that present moment and really trust what my spirit knows is true, I know that there's perfection in all of that, and that there's a reason, even if I don't get it or get it in that moment. So, okay, so taking that, how do you take that little bit of information and that understanding that you have, and then use that, because you mentioned earlier that you work with clients that deal with fibromyalgia. I'm not a believer in saying that we have fibro. I don't like to take ownership of any of these diseases. It's just something that we get to work through or move through. So you have clients who get to work through these things. How is it that you take this information of the right timing and help them move through this process of healing, but then also using some of the natural remedies and stuff you do? How do you put that stuff together in a way that helps that client start progressing or understanding, maybe even more than anything?
Usually when they come to me, they're just like, I want to have less pain. I want to have more energy. Tell me what I need to do. And so it kind of starts there. So we start with some herbal healing. We start doing some lifestyle changes. And then we kind of start getting into the deep stuff. I will tell you, because it's very personal, sometimes people aren't ready. I had a client that worked with me last year. And in the last couple of months, she was like, I went back to doing that journaling exercise. And this is all the stuff that came back. So she wasn't ready to do it when we worked together last year, but she was ready to do it now for a reason. And I was just like, thank you for sharing that with me, right? Thank you for sharing that, you know, in this time, it was time for you to come back to that and to do the emotional work to work through it, right? So sometimes it's in the moment while we're coaching, while we're doing things, that things come up and they want to talk about it. I've had some people say, I don't really want to talk about it. I've written this down. I'm going to take it to my therapist, but I don't really want to talk about it with you. And that's totally okay. And some people just aren't ready to do it then, and maybe they'll come back to it later. But understanding that there's that emotional component or that past like traumatic, you know, that needs to be worked through is huge, because when you're talking like 90% people have had some kind of traumatic experience, and most of the time that's been some kind of sexual assault, that's huge. That's huge. And I'm not a therapist, so I'm not always equipped, but I think sometimes knowing you are not alone in this, you are not crazy, right? There is a connection, is huge. That can be very healing.
Right. You know, you can have open enough conversations, again, the emotional maturity to say, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't in a space to really get in and feel those feelings. I didn't know how to sit with them. I didn't know how to let them just move through me in a way that felt safe. Because it's rarely probably going to feel comfortable, but that feels safe. And that you can sit with that and be like, okay, cool. But that also they can say, I've done this work, but I don't feel comfortable sharing it with you. And that you recognize that this is a team approach. It takes a village. And that it takes confidence as a practitioner of some sort or another to allow other team members in this healing process. And I think that people who would work with you, or someone who's like you, that are like, okay, are very, very blessed to have understanding inside of the coaching and healing process. I had a question that came up in that as you were talking. So when somebody comes to you and they say, I mean, we are ready, and we both have been in places where we're like, oh yeah, I'm ready to do this coaching, I'm ready to do this thing, and then we get in, we're like, oh yeah, maybe not so ready, or we feel ourselves hesitating on things. How do you move forward, or how do you work with the person who, I'm not ready? How do you move them through that? What's the response to that?
Whenever we're making changes, it's going to be hard, right? Like our body, our brain wants to keep us where we're at because that's safe. So you're always going to come into that. And it's usually about 6 weeks in, I found. That's pretty inaccurate. Like right about 6 weeks. In the very beginning, it's new, it's exciting. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, right? And so this is why when a lot of people, when they're making any health changes, no matter what it is, they're like, I just don't have the motivation. I just don't have the willpower. And I'm like, that actually has nothing to do with it. It's actually your brain protecting you, saying, this is something new. We're not comfortable with change. We want to stay the same, right? So that's when the really hard stuff comes up. So I've always found that in the very beginning, you know, when it's fresh, it's new, they're excited to start, that's when you're like, why are you doing this? Getting down to the nitty gritty, usually asking why about 5 times to really get it like, wait, you know, really what their why is. Because
that's one of my favorite
exercises. Like, I hate it when people do it with me. I'm like, because I know where they're going, and I'm like there's gonna be tears, and I don't want there to be tears. But anyway, usually there's you know, when you get down to that. I
right?
know.
Like I know when it's being done to me, and
Yeah.
I'm not a
So
fan.
once we get to that point where it's like, it's really hard, I just want to throw in the towel, nothing is working, that's when you go back to, remember week one? Like, remember how you said this? Like, you have to remember those things for them, especially when you have like brain fog, that sort of thing, and say, remember when you said this.
Right.
Is that still important to you? Yes, because we asked why to really get to that emotion. Yeah, that's still important to me. There's always going to be hard times. There may, especially when it's health, there might always be setbacks, right? Sometimes it takes some experimenting to figure something out, but it's reminding them of that why. Always going back and reminding them of that why. And that's different for everybody. And usually that'll push through. I've even had somebody where like, I'm done, I quit, whatever. And sometimes they never come back. Sometimes they're like 6 months later, all right, no, I'm ready. Right. You just never know when they're going to be,
Right.
but most of the time it's just going back and reminding of that why.
Well, and I love that you have the understanding of that and can hold that space of these people. And if you're listening today, this is a really great thing to remember is that, it, most of the time people really aren't trying to be jerky. They in whatever it is, whether it's a healing or a conversation or something you're presenting to them or a new idea, and it may come off as jerky. It's a really wise thing to remember and hold this space of grace for them, that you may have just pushed something, a button that they don't even know is causing them discord on the inside, or causing them feelings and emotions they're not even sure of, or they really don't know the answer yet, and they're just not ready. Um, and to just be okay with that, and to not push them or to label them as dumb or stupid or jerky or being, whatever, but to just say, okay, there's a reason people act like this for a reason, or they do these behaviors for a reason, and to understand and see that inside of yourself as well. That's always my first response is, where do I act like that? And why is it bothering me that they're acting like that? Where inside myself do I act like that? So I love that you can hold that space and know that there will be a time when they are ready. And when they are, they'll probably come back to you because you held that space of grace and held them in like loving, tender hands, like, I'm here when you're ready.
And I've been told that a lot when I tell people, I'm here when you're ready. Like, it's not now, it's fine. Like, and they're like, really? Because we've talked to other people and they're really pushy, like, now's the time, it's now or never. And I'm like, no, because if you're not ready, then you can pay me all the money, but you're not going to get the results that you want if you're not ready to make the change. So.
Right. Well, and don't you think this is my belief on this, is that if we push somebody into something that they're not the versus helping them move upward by saying, it's okay if you're not ready right now.
Yeah, you cut out there for a little bit, so I don't know if there was a question in that, but
I don't know.
you try to refresh again.
Are you there?
Oh yeah.
Are you there?
Is that better?
I'm telling you what, this is like the most interesting conversation. It's my thinking. I'm like, it's because we're talking about freaking amazing stuff, and it's going to test people to actually listen to what's going on today. So did you catch what I said?
I didn't catch all of it. That's why I was like, if there was a question in there, I missed the question, but I think I got the idea.
No, the only question was, is are you in a similar belief system of like, if we're doing something we're not ready for, a lot of times we're just going to continue laying down proof of already false belief and habits versus turning, taking a step onto that different path where we can then start building new belief systems about ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. If they're not ready, they're going to come back with, I already did that. I already did that. I already did that. I'm like, but did you really do it? Or did you, yeah, they're just not ready, and they're just going to keep, yeah. It's that mindset of they're just not ready, so they're not going to see the changes. Yeah.
That's crazy. Crazy and awesome. And, I think when we start coming to these understandings, life in how we interact with other people, our own mental, emotional health increases, which, then starts to increase the other parts of our health too, simply by changing our thinking and our understanding, one, of ourselves and how we behave and respond or react, and then understanding that happens in other people as well. Okay, so let's take what you do with people just a little bit farther. If someone listening to us today, either themselves or they know someone who gets to play with the dis-ease of my fibromyalgia, I almost put those symbols backwards. What other things, or if they just want to come to you in health in general, what kinds of things do you offer, and what is your, even beyond the products and the services, what is your end goal for people? Like, what, why?
Really, my mission is to help people understand the root cause of what's going on and know how to heal from the inside out, right? I actually consider myself an anti-diet practitioner, meaning I'm never going to put somebody on some crazy fad diet. I'm never going to tell you to, and most of the time when people are like, why so-and-so said to try this diet, I'm like, no, if it has a name, it's a fad. Like I'm a very big believer in that. So there's not going to be any like heavy restriction or anything like that. I do some food intolerance testing because I think it's crazy what will come up and how that can affect people's health. I knew that was life-changing for me, figuring out some of the things that, negatively affected me. So I might run some labs. I might, have some consultations. We will have nutritional consults, but I don't even remember what the question was. So I was like, but when they come to work with me, it's, I'm pretty laid back. I'm a huge believer in making habit changes one at a time. Like when you dive into something saying, I got to change 50 things at once, that's when we're just going to be like, I'm done with this. When you're doing it one at a time, that's when you're going to start seeing sustainable results.
So what I'm hearing you say in doing one habit at a time is that you actually are a believer in setting people up for success versus setting them up for failure by giving them a whole bunch of things.
And it's interesting because somebody recently said, so after I work with you for 4 months, then what? I said, my goal is for you to have the tools that you need to then manage your health and wellness on your own. I'm not somebody that's like, well, then we'll go on to another 4-month program, right? Some people are like, I just need a little bit more hand holding for a little bit longer, and that's fine. But my goal is to make you self-sufficient in those 4 months that you can kind of figure these things out for yourself, to really learn how to listen to your body, to learn to listen to what it's telling you so that you can then do the things that you need to do.
See, and me personally, I think that is absolutely spectacular. I remember when I was studying, I can't remember if it was personal training certification or if it was a nutrition, something. And they said, your responsibility is to work yourself out of a job. Which means our job is to teach people how to take care of themselves, how to manage things, and then come back for maintenance, checkup if they need it, but to not be dependent on us forever. And I love that you have that mentality as well. It's that whole teach a man to fish, or a woman to fish. And what a beautiful thing, and what a gift for the people who come and work with you. We get your information to people who have have dealt with or dealing with fibromyalgia, or again, they know somebody who is, and get you to them, in front of them, as a resource, as someone who, you guys, this is someone who understands it. She has worked through it herself. Still is my understanding.
Oh
You have
yeah,
days where you're like, oh,
yeah.
I'm having a day with this. And it's not something that you're completely past. And so you still have the understanding, you're still in it. And you know how to sit with people in it, which is
The
powerful.
other thing I love doing
so we'll make sure that
is dealing with people with
Tell me.
autoimmune. So I have a couple of autoimmunes that are so rare. When I go to a doctor and say I have this, like, we've never heard of that before. Okay. So helping people navigate that as well is huge, because it took me 2 years to figure something out, and a lot of doctors had never heard anything in a specialist. So I love being like, let me help you advocate at this doctor's office, so it doesn't take you 2 years to get the answers that you need. So I love doing that too. When you're just like, something's just not right. I don't know what it is. I don't have a diagnosis. Doctors don't know what's wrong with me. That to me is like the ultimate challenge. I'm like, oh, we will get it figured out. Like, we will figure it out.
I love that. And I love, again, that is a weird sound, that you're helping provide a shortcut to find those answers, because you're like, okay, I've been there. I know that it takes a long time sometimes. And I'm glad you brought that up, because when I think of you, or I see you. I don't think of like, oh, this is someone who, deals with fibromyalgia, or she deals with autoimmune. I just don't think that way. So thank you for reminding me and bringing that up. And I love that you're like, come, let me help you. We'll figure it out together. And I'm telling you, if you're listening.
Yeah, and I love it. I'm like, oh,
right?
Yeah, it's like a mystery to solve.
Right? Oh, geez, so cool. So we'll make sure that people get your information. So as we close, I'm just going to, again, say thank you to you for being on here today and being willing to flow with whatever is going on with technology today. And then also to you, the listener, thank you for being on here and being patient with whatever is going on with technology today. And again, recognizing that this is just part of life. It's how we continue to move forward and grow, and that you too can do the same thing. And it's going to be okay. And if someone were to think poorly of you, well, then you know what? You don't need them in your circles anyway. They're not your people.
No.
But with that said, Tiffany, what would be, let's do this. 3 words to live by, and a book or two that you really enjoy. And I don't care what kind of book it is that you would suggest people get their hands on.
Oh my gosh, 3 words to live by.
Or it doesn't have to be words. It can be like thoughts that you live by.
That's a
This
hard
is a tough
one.
one. I totally just put you
should
on the
have been
spot.
prepared about this.
No.
I think the first thing that pops into my head is nothing is impossible, right? Nothing is impossible.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that, whether
because
that
what does the
is
word
in
say?
your health,
I'm possible,
right? Or whether it's in your like personal life, whatever your hopes and dreams are, whatever your goals, nothing is impossible, right? We're not limited in any way, shape, or form. Some of my favorite books. So I just reread this one, and it's a fiction book. One of my favorite books of all times is Memoirs of a Geisha. Love that book. Just reread it. Oh my gosh, I just love it. So that's one of my books. Another book that I am a huge fan of, actually, is Health at Every Size. And I say this because I'm super passionate about not judging people on their weight. And so many times doctors will be like, I'll fix that problem when you lose weight, right? And I'm like, there's so much science in that book. Oh, I froze.
What is
it's
it
called
again?
Health at Every Size. And I love the science in it. I love the science in it. So that's another one of my like favorite health books. And I have so many favorite books that I don't even know what to pick. And let's see, fiction or nonfiction? I know. What do I pick? Look at all these books on my shelf. My husband was like, "Can you part with those?" I'm like, "No, I cannot part with those." They're all mine, and I need them all. Yeah, lots of books.
That happens in my house too.
And I'm also, okay, well, I'm going to share with you another fiction book, because another one of my favorite fiction books is The Da Vinci Code. And I love all things by Dan Brown. Like this whole, like, there's the religion in there, there's the mystery in there. I love that kind of stuff too. So those are my three. I probably could give you more, but I was off the cuff, you know.
I love it. That is perfect. That is perfect. Any last words to live by other than nothing is impossible? Those are pretty good ones. Like that's, but what I love about it is when you look at the word, what does the word say?
Yeah.
I'm possible.
I like it.
I'm possible. Oh my gosh. Thank you again for sharing you with us, but then also sharing little tidbits of wisdom and information and how you work with people and to help bring them to greater wholeness and wellness so that they can get on with the active living. It's pretty cool. I know that you touched my life, and I love learning from you. I love hearing your stories, and I look forward to sitting with you again here soon. 2 weeks.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me.
You guys, you're welcome. One of the things that Tiffany and I do together is when I said we're soul sisters, but we're also soul sisters, which is we have the opportunity to be teammates, business partners in Soul Naturals, which is an herb-based, we call it power-packed nutrition, plant nutrition. And I just love what we get to learn there and that we get to share that with people. I know you use it in your business. I use it in mine, and I have no shame in promoting that. So if you're listening and you want a little extra boost, I'm a believer in supplementation, but I'm also a believer in good supplementation. Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot of not so good out there. And I'm telling you, I'm not just saying this because I do it. I've waited a long time for a company or a product like this to come into my realm that I felt comfortable enough sharing with people. I know Tiffany has been the same. If you're looking for something to supplement your health and your nutrition, we've got some good stuff for you, and I would invite you to reach out. And we are more than happy to share information with you. And when you're ready, then you can take the product for yourself and experience the goodness that comes from that. So Tiffany, I'm really glad that has brought us together. And again, I look forward to seeing you in Florida here in a couple of weeks. And for those of you who are out there, we look forward to seeing you hopefully soon. Come join us on a Tuesday adventure. Come join us in one of we each have separate coaching businesses, health and nutrition. Come and join us. Reach out. We'll let you know how to find us. And until then, remember, it's up to you. You're the one that you're looking for. Be bold, be brave, be a rebel. We'll see you soon.